Hi everyone, it's Paul from Alexander Knife Sharpening and Laser Engraving. So I'm currently surrounded by xTool lasers. On the right, I have the xTool S1 20 watt laser, and on my left here, I have the xTool S1 40 watt laser. And what I'm going to do is compare the two for you. I'm going to do tests of the same types of material and same engravings, cuttings, and different things to show you the abilities of both of these lasers. Now, you might be saying, Paul, didn't you say they're both S1 lasers? Aren't they the same laser? Well, technically, they are the same laser, but what they have different is the laser module inside. So this one here is a 20 watt laser module, and this one over here is a 40 watt laser module. What is laser modules, and why do you need to know what they are and what the differences are? So in the S1 series of lasers, you can actually get several different modules. You can get a 10 watt module, you can get a 20 watt module, you can get a 40 watt module, and you can also get what's called a 2 watt infrared module. Now, I own 3 of the modules. I have the 20 watt, I have the 40 watt, and I also have the 2 watt infrared module. So I'm going to talk to you about all 3 of those. I will talk a little bit about the 10 watt module, even though I don't own it. Let's just talk real quickly about what do you need to know about modules. So here's the basics. They come in different powers. The lower the power, the smaller the beam width on that laser. So if you think of it as like a big giant flashlight and the size being tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and smaller. So a 10 watt has a very tight beam and it can do very detailed engravings. And as you go up, a 20 watt is going to be less detailed than a 10, but it has more power. And with more power, you can do deeper engravings, you can cut things. When you start getting up there in really high powers, like this 40 watt laser, now you're talking about a laser that has very good cutting ability. And that's one of the hard things to decide between lasers. So in full disclosure, I just wanted to explain to everybody that this laser on the left, I purchased myself with my own money back in December. The one on the right was provided to me by xTool. I'm not paid for the review. They didn't put any stipulations on the review other than that they wanted me to be completely honest and they wanted it to be 10 minutes long. And that was all they asked, which I think is great. I love companies that want to be right out there in the open and say, please give us an honest and fair review. And that's my intentions here today, is to help you pick the very best S1 laser for you. Let's get started. Okay, so the very first test I ran was a SVG logo of this Department of Defense image on slate coasters. And they both look, to me, fantastic. The thing that surprised me is I thought that this one looks a tiny bit sharper. This one's a little brighter, but I thought this one was a little bit sharper. And this is the 40 watt, and this was the 20 watt laser. So, very interesting, but I gotta say, those results are almost indistinguishable. Like, they both look really good. So, no issues there, but I was a little bit surprised to see that what looks sharper to my eye was the 40 watt and not the 20 watt on this particular file. Now, they were both run at the recommended settings, and I'm sure you could tweak them and get slightly, different results, but I thought that was neat to see how close these actually look to each other. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to run another test. This time we're going to do a much more detailed coaster. So I have this drawing of a Navy ship firing a missile. It's a PNG file. We're going to run it on the stone coaster settings. It is going to be a grayscale image, and let's see how each laser performs with this image. Okay, each laser is finished. So let's take these out and take a look. Okay, so here's the first one. And it looks really good. The detail's good. And here is the second one. And I feel the same way. Now, these look a little bit different, but I think it's more the coaster than the engraving. Keep in mind, these are organic material, and they're all going to be a little bit different. I really couldn't tell you, definitively, like, oh, this one, to my eye, this one looks a tiny bit sharper. But here's what's interesting. It's the 40 watt. They're real close, I would, and to me they both look good. The one difference I notice is this one looks a little bit more white gray, and this one looks like has a little hint of yellow, but a lot of times, like I said, that could probably be tweaked by running your own material test. This might be a little bit more spot on. This might be a little bit overburnt, but man, are they close. I couldn't really tell you that one is significantly better than the other. I'm actually liking the 40 watt on this one. So that's really interesting. Okay, so let's go on to another one. Here is another test. These are just basswood coasters. And in this, I can see a difference. These were run at exactly the same settings, but to me, the one on the left looks significantly sharper, and it's definitely darker. And what's interesting this time is that this time, this one was the 20 watt, and this was the 40 watt. This is definitely not as sharp as this. And where I'm seeing it, so in the main, you can see there's little dots here. You can see them here. I'm seeing a lot more lines in the 40 watt now than I am on the 20 watt. So it's interesting. It looks like my 20 watt might be a little bit better and sharper on softer materials. So it looks like they might be performing very close to exactly the same on hard materials like stone, but I am definitely seeing a sharper image here with better coverage, more filled in. Now we could up the DPI and things here, but I would definitely say in this test here, it is clear that the 20 watt was sharper this time. So I'm starting to wonder if it's maybe a soft material versus hard material thing. For the next test, I want to check the cutting abilities of these two laser modules. So I'm going to run it at 100% power, a speed of 2, and just do a straight cut line across this stack of basswood coasters. There are about 19 millimeters of coaster here, and I'm going to keep a close eye on it because I don't want it to catch fire. I am going to lower the beam by 3 millimeters, which is usually recommended for cutting. And what I want to see here is how many layers it gets through. So we'll count how many it cuts, and I'm not going to run it on a 1 super slow. I think we'll run it on a 2 and see how many layers it cuts through, and then we'll do the same thing with the 20 watt. Alrighty, so I do have my fan going, so it should pull the smoke out, and let's get started. I'm going to keep a close eye on this because we definitely don't want to get a fire. If I have to stop it, I will. You want to be safe when you're, cutting something like this. This is, probably something you wouldn't need to do, but I'm just really curious to see if it'll get through all of these coasters, or almost all of them. It says it'll cut up to 17 millimeters of cherry, which I would believe would be much harder than these basswood coasters. And I have a weight just holding the stack of coasters together there so that we don't have any air gaps. You can see it's doing a really awesome job. All the smoke's going out. I have a very good vent fan connected up to my S1s. It's not even burning the top of that coaster. So that looks pretty good. And we're through. All right, let's see what the results were. So we definitely got through the first one, and the second, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and it looks like it burned on the sixth one, but didn't cut through. We had a little bit going through on the sixth, seven, and it never got through the eighth one at all. Okay, so that cut 12.4 millimeters, and that was at speed 2 at 100% power. So that's really good. And I'm pretty sure, you know, their claim on the cherry is probably spot on. If it was at 1 speed, I like how it didn't burn up even that top one. If you look at our top coaster, that is a very clean cut. So pretty impressive. Let's go on to the 20 watt and see what it can do. Okay, on to the test of the 20 watt. I did have to pull a few coasters out because of the height restriction of this machine, because it doesn't have the extended base. So it wasn't able to fit all those coasters, but we shouldn't be getting through as many. So we'll see what happens. Other than that, it's the same setting, 100% power at 2 speed with the lowered 3 millimeter focus dot. And we're getting good smoke extraction, and this also seems to be very clean on that top coaster. And we'll do the same thing here, see how many we got through. All right, all done. Very nice clean cut, that is for sure. We cut the first coaster, no problem. Second, third, the fourth, we're through. And we didn't get all the way through the fifth. So we got through 4 coasters very cleanly, and we started on the fifth. Let me give you how many millimeters that is. So we cleanly cut 9.9, I think we could safely say 10 millimeters of basswood coasters stacked together. That's pretty impressive, and it's a very nice clean cut on that first cut through. Looks really good. So good job. So the next test I'm going to do is, technically I would guess we would call this a marking test. I don't know that it's so much engraving, but 20 watt lasers can mark stainless steel. So we're going to run a test on here. We're going to run a test grid to see what kind of engraving, or basically I think we should call it a marking, we can get. Now later I will show you what the 2 watt IR can do, which looks really great. But if you don't have that yet, or can't afford it just yet, and this is what you have to work with, you can mark stainless steel. And actually it's pretty cool because sometimes you get different colors with the 20 watt IR module. So let's see how this does on a material test grid. This is a stainless steel business card. I like to use those to run my test grids on, and they give me a pretty good idea of how it will react on a knife engraving. So this test is underway. It's going to take about 12 minutes for us to get the results of this engraving on the stainless steel business card. Okay, so if we look at the business card here, you'll see we have some colors there. Up at 300 at 60 power, we have a blue. We have some that look like blacks. We have one that looks a little bit like a white, and it's a little hard to tell from the video, but we do actually have a little bit of a hint of red on some of these. So you can get some really unique colors, and you can continue to run test grids and see what you can kind of get out of your engravings with your 450 nanometer. And here's just a little example to show you. I tried to kind of simulate a flag with red, white, and blue, and I accidentally got a blue stripe in the wrong spot up there, but it gives you kind of an idea what you can do there. That blue real engraving actually looks really quite good. I like that blue color, and I was really happy with that. And then you can kind of get a hint of that red that's there too. So I threw this in because I wanted you guys to see what the infrared module looks like. So this is the xTool S1 IR module. And if you look at the 100 at 10 speed, we have a very deep black, and this is an actual engraving. You can feel that it has cut into and removed the metal. And that's the difference there between the 450 nanometer blue laser is really just marking the surface, and that's how we're also getting this colors. And here is also another example of a knife engraving I did for a wedding for someone. And this is with the 2-watt IR, and it gives you a very black engraving. And it's a very nice detail too, because that IR laser has a very small beam width. So it gives a very detailed engraving as well. But I just wanted to show you what that looks like. And that has worked out very well for me for knife engravings. And that will also give you some color variation. So you can run tests with that. And you can see here, they're mostly kind of tan colors and browns all the way into hitting kind of a deep black. But I did want to show you what the 2-watt IR does. And it is an actual engraving and not so much just a marking. You will feel it. It is deep into there, and it gives you those nice colors. So I thought now might be a good time to summarize my opinion of both of these machines, try and give you guys some insight as to who I think they'd be best suited for, especially for those of you out there that might be considering your first laser. Having used both the S1 20-watt and the S1 40-watt for quite some time now, I can tell you that if I had purchased the S1 20-watt first, I would have been completely happy with this laser. As you saw from the tests that I ran, its capabilities compared to the 40-watt are really, really close. So it cuts. Did it cut as much? No, but in my test, I think it was around 2 millimeters less. And in all honesty, I haven't had to cut anything really thick with my 40-watt. Now, it's nice that I have the ability to do that, but it just hasn't been a feature that I've actually needed right away. I also love how these machines can grow with you. So you can start with a basic model, and then you can add the features that you need. And if there's things that you don't need, you don't ever need to pick them up. And if there's things that you decide you want to get into later, you can just go and purchase those accessories for it. The one accessory that I think is an absolute must, and it was one of the very first things I noticed using both of these lasers, is the riser base. I absolutely would recommend that you get the riser base for your S1 before any other things that you would add to it. The riser base increases the size and the amount of things that you can do in this laser. I very much like to put things on my honeycomb grid. Even if I'm not cutting, I still like to use it because they don't slide around a whole lot on the honeycomb grid. I went to do a cutting board engraving on this, and I couldn't fit my cutting board in with the honeycomb grid in there. So I would have had to take it out and put it in the crumb tray in the bottom. Now, it would fit with just the crumb tray, but with the riser base, you never have that concern. It gives you just so much more room in there to fit in all kinds of different sized objects. So that would be my first recommendation. The other reason I like the riser base is because all the other accessories, the RA2 tumbler rotator, the pass-through, you are gonna need the riser base to use those. So it's probably the very best accessory to get, because right from Jump Street, it's going to increase the size of things that you can engrave, and it's going to be an integral part that you're going to need if you add on any of those other items. Now, if you're a knife sharpening service like me, or if you're a knife maker, the other thing that I would give very strong consideration to would be what you see here, the 2-watt infrared module. As I've shown you, it does beautiful dark black engravings that are actual engravings, and they are deep into the metal that you cannot do with the 20-watt or the 40-watt. You can mark metal, but it's not the same as engraving metal. Now, I'm going to quickly talk about a couple other xTool machines just because I think they're worth mentioning, even though we're focusing on these S1 units. But since I know a huge part of my audience are sharpeners and a lot of you guys are mobile sharpeners, if you're considering a laser, your first laser choice might be the F1. I'm not talking about the F1 Ultra, which is xTool's newest laser. That laser was designed for small businesses, and quite honestly, if you're starting out, most people buying their first laser probably aren't going to be interested in the F1 Ultra. One is because of price. It's $4,000 and it's actually going to be very close to $5,000. They just had some very good deals in the beginning. If you don't already have a established business, it might be just way more than you need. And it's got a very high price point. So I'm sure a lot of you that have never purchased a laser, if you went there and looked at the F1 Ultra and you see that $4,000 price tag, which is going to go up at some point to $4,700, it's probably going to be something that you're like, yeah, I don't think so. I actually did order that laser, and I'll talk about it at a different time. But as you guys know, I have a pretty well-established business, and my laser engraving business has been growing in leaps and bounds. What I'm talking about when I say the F1 laser that you might be interested in is I'm talking the regular F1. So there's two F1s, the F1 and the F1 Ultra. The regular F1 is a 2-watt IR and a 10-watt blue laser, which is very similar to this 20-watt. It's just half the power. That gives you a broad range of materials that you can do. But if you're a knife engraver or a knife maker, it gives you the ability to do that very nice dark engraving in metal. So that's one nice thing about the F1, and they tend to run around $1,700. So that's it for now. I hope I gave you a good kind of oversight into the S1 lasers and some of the other lasers that xTool offers. I will just finish with this one quick note, and I'm going to do other videos on this in the future. But that is, I want to talk just briefly about xTool Creative Space software. The software that runs these lasers is one of the reasons I love xTool a lot. It's super user-friendly. And you've probably heard about Lightburn, which is pretty much for years been the industry standard for lasers. But quite frankly, Lightburn's a little complicated if you've never used a laser before. It took me a long time to learn Lightburn, and I'm still learning Lightburn, and it's just not that easy. The xTool Creative Space software, they keep adding to it, and they are trying to include, it seems to me like they're trying to include all the features that you see on Lightburn. They just recently added one I noticed today that wasn't there before, so they're constantly updating it, but it is really user-friendly. I mean, super user-friendly. So tune into some of my other videos coming up. On this job, I got in 10 groomsmen knives, and I actually did these using both S1 lasers at the same time. One engraving the metal on these knives, and one doing the leather sheaths. And I'm going to talk to you and show you the whole process of how I made the graphic, what I did, how I used XCS software to do this project for this job that came in. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the review of the S1s. One last thing I almost forgot. I will leave links to the xTool store in my description of this YouTube video. They are affiliate links. If you purchase an xTool laser, I will get a small commission. It helps my channel grow, and it helps me continue to do reviews for you guys. It doesn't increase the price at all for you. It's just a small commission that they give to me for doing things like this. So I did want to add that in there. And I did also want to add that please If this is the first time that you've checked out my channel and you like what you see, please subscribe, please join. We're getting really close to 10,000 subscribers. The last time I checked, we were like 9,000, I think 500 some. So we were almost at 10,000, and I'd like to break 10,000 before the end of the month. Have a great night, everybody, and look for those other videos coming soon.